Moses stands exhausted before a line of people stretching to the horizon. Day after day, from morning until evening, he alone settles their disputes. This is the unsustainable leadership model, threatening to break the man chosen to deliver a nation. The divine calling is clear, but the human limitation is crushing. The solution arrives not from the Israelite camp, but from the desert, in the form of a Midianite priest named Jethro. This is the untold story of the outsider, who became the organizational architect for Israel, transforming a one-man judicial crisis into a scalable system of governance that would define a nation, and offers a masterclass in leadership that remains startlingly relevant today. Jethro's arrival at the Israelite camp is a familial reunion, bringing Moses, wife and sons to him, but the text quickly pivots from this personal moment to a professional observation. Jethro watches his son-in-law work, and what he witnesses is a system on the brink of collapse. The narrative emphasizes the exhaustive, solitary nature of the task. Moses sits as the sole magistrate, and the people stand around him from morning until evening. This is not a portrait of effective leadership, but of a looming breakdown. Jethro then poses one of the most incisive questions in the biblical narrative, a query that cuts to the heart of unsustainable practice. What is this thing that you are doing for the people? The question is not an accusation, but a diagnostic tool, seeking to understand the rationale behind a clearly flawed methodology. Moses' justification reveals a deeply held sense of duty and a specific theological understanding. He explains that the people come to him to inquire of God, and that he serves as the mediator who brings their disputes before the divine, making known to them the statutes and laws of God. This creates a profound tension between divine calling and human limitation. Moses' motivation is pure. He acts from a desire to serve both God and the people. Yet the method is fundamentally flawed because it is not scalable and depends entirely on one person's endurance. Jethro, the outsider, possesses the clarity to see what those inside the system cannot, that a work of God can be undermined by a failure of human administration. His assessment is blunt and compassionate, delivered not as criticism but as concern for Moses' well-being and the community's future. He tells Moses, "The thing that you are doing is not good. The judgment is on the process, not the person." The solitary model will inevitably lead to collective failure, wearing out both Moses and the people who depend on him. This confrontation in the desert is the crucial first step, moving from passive observation to active diagnosis, setting the stage for a radical prescription. Jethro's counsel moves swiftly from diagnosis to a detailed prescription, a blueprint for distributed leadership that is both spiritually wise and pragmatically brilliant. His primary concern is sustainability. "You will surely wear yourself out," he warns Moses, highlighting the personal cost of the current model. But his solution addresses more than just Moses' fatigue. It re-engineers the entire judicial and administrative structure of the nascent nation. The core of the Jethro Principle is qualified delegation. He does not advise Moses to simply offload his work onto any willing volunteer. Instead, he outlines specific, rigorous criteria for the leaders to be chosen. These individuals must be men of ability, a practical requirement for handling complex disputes. Nokom quitaim, men who fear God, ensuring their judgments are grounded in a reverence for divine authority and justice. Furthermore, they must be trustworthy, known for their integrity, and they must hate dishonest gain, a critical safeguard against the corruption that so easily inflicts systems of power. This combination of practical competence, spiritual maturity, and moral integrity forms the foundation for a righteous bureaucracy. Jethro then proposes a multi-tiered hierarchical structure to manage the scale of the population. He instructs Moses to appoint leaders over thousands, hundreds, fifties, and tens. This was not a military formation but a civil administration framework, creating a cascading system of justice where smaller matters are resolved at the most local level possible. Only the great matters, the most difficult cases that exceed the delegated authority or wisdom of these lower judges, would be brought before Moses. This reserved jurisdiction ensured Moses could focus his energy and spiritual discernment on the cases that truly required his unique role as mediator. This system is far more than a management technique. It is a practical implementation of the covenant community. It reflects a divine pattern of distributed authority, where governance is a shared responsibility, rather than a crushing burden placed on a single individual. Jethro presents this plan with a profound theological conditional. If you do this, and God so commands you, then you will be able to endure. He acknowledges that the final authority rests with God, positioning his own counsel as wise advice that must be confirmed by divine directive. The principle transforms leadership from a solitary struggle into a communal exercise in discernment and justice, marrying divine wisdom with organizational genius. The text presents Moses' response to Jethro's counsel with striking immediacy. He listens to his father-in-law and does all that he has said. There is no recorded debate or hesitation. Moses recognizes the wisdom and implements the new structure without delay. This swift adoption underscores the practical necessity of the reform and Moses' own awareness of his unsustainable position. The narrative then shifts from the planning stage to the operational reality, showing the system in motion. Moses chooses the capable men from all Israel and appoints them as leaders over the various tiers of the population. The result is a fundamental transformation of the community's daily life. The people no longer stand in a single, endless queue awaiting one man's attention. Justice is now administered locally, efficiently, and with greater accessibility. The impact of this reorganization was profound and multifaceted. First, it provided the sustainability Moses desperately needed, allowing him to endure in his leadership role. Second, and perhaps more importantly, it created a scalable system of governance. This structure was not just for the static camp at Sinai. It was a model designed for a nation on the move. As Israel prepared for conquest and eventual settlement in the land of Canaan, this judicial and administrative framework provided the necessary backbone for national organization. It decentralized authority, fostering a sense of shared responsibility and local governance that would be essential for managing the territories they would inhabit. This system stands in stark contrast to the top-down, autocratic models common in the surrounding ancient Near East, where ultimate judicial and administrative power was typically concentrated in the hands of the king or a tiny elite. Jethro's model, by distributing authority based on character and competence, planted the seeds for a different kind of community. The Deuteronomic literature later confirms and refines this structure, instructing judges to be appointed in all the towns that God would give, demonstrating how Jethro's initial blueprint became a permanent feature of Israelite civic life. The implementation of this plan was not merely an administrative adjustment. It was a critical step in the formation of Israel's identity as a covenant people governed by laws accessible to all. Following the implementation of the new system, Jethro's role in the narrative concludes. He departs, returning to his own land, his mission accomplished. Yet his influence did not depart with him. Moses continued to operate within the delegated leadership structure, and its principles outlived him. When Joshua assumed leadership after Moses' death, the framework of distributed responsibility remained essential for guiding the nation through the period of conquest and settlement. Jethro, the Midianite priest, thus became an unseen architect of Israel's foundational systems of justice and administration. The theological significance of this episode is profound. It demonstrates a recurring biblical theme: God using outsiders, those beyond the covenant community, to provide essential wisdom and direction for his people. Jethro's counsel is presented not as a foreign intrusion, but as divine wisdom channeled through a receptive and discerning individual. His story places him within a larger biblical narrative of wisdom that transcends ethnic and religious boundaries, reminding us that insight and organizational genius can come from unexpected quarters. Jethro's legacy is embedded in the very fabric of Israel's story, a testament to the fact that God's work in forming a nation often involves a collaboration of diverse voices and gifts. Jethro's organizational insight offers an enduring lesson on the wisdom of shared leadership and the perils of solitary burden-bearing. His story reveals that effective governance, even with divine backing, requires sound human structures. For more untold stories of the pivotal figures who shaped biblical history, explore our other videos and subscribe to the channel.